The first verse of the Shema is Shema Yisrael. Listen, Israel, or hear, O Israel. Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Now, if in the Torah, if you take the way these letters are formed on the word Shema, and even in some Sidurim, the way it's printed, the ayin is larger than the first two letters. And on the closing word echad means one, the dalid is larger than the first two letters. First word is three letters. The closing letter word is three letters. The closing letter on the first word is a large ayin, and the closing letter on echad is a dalid. In Hebrew, a witness is called aid. So meaning, we are the testimony to the world. It's testimony to the world, and when we declare our belief in the unity of God, that's what's contained within this first verse. But even more so, what we declare to the world, we say, "Hear, O Israel." It's not what the world believes. It's what we have to believe. That God is the omnipotent being. He's the Almighty. He's infinite. Nothing exists outside of him. This is all contained, which we'll discuss in detail within this first verse. So when we say this verse, we are witness to the reality of who God is. But how do we know? How do we know who God is? Since when have we become such experts on what God is? The answer is very simple. If you go back 3,800 years ago, there was an event which was called the Sinai event, the Sinai event. Every Jew that existed at that moment, which was the equivalent about 4 million Jews, encircled the mountain. God descended from heaven onto that mountain, and God openly communicated with every person that stood there. It was a prophetic communication. God revealed all aspects of creation and revealed to us who he is. That he is the master. He's the Almighty. He's infinite. All that was communicated during that revelation of Sinai, which was prophecy. So when we declare this and we make this statement, it's not we're experts. Years ago, people used to say, when I grew up, I know your father longer than you know him. It used to be a common phrase in the 50s. I know your father longer than you know him. You may say you know him, but me being his son and having a different level of relationship, you may know who he is longer than I do, but in terms of knowing who he is and what his value is, because my relationship is a different relationship, it's a different knowing. That we know and we could express and articulate all the aspects of what's meant and is needed to understand who God is. God, by communicating this phrase to us, the sentence and this revealing its reality at Sinai, that put this in perspective as reality, as fact. So this is part of our transmission. As I always say, how do we know we have a soul? Maybe we're intellectual animals. It all goes back to Sinai, because God at Sinai revealed to us, the creator, that a human being is a composite of the physical and the spiritual. The soul is the spiritual component of our being. The physicality facilitates the soul's objective. The perspective is actualized through the body. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Shema, the last letter of the first word, and the last closing letter of the last word. Aid. God says, you are the Eidim. Edim is plural of witnesses. You are the witnesses to who I am, because I revealed myself and gave you a semblance of understanding, which is impossible to know on your own. But even after I revealed it, to be able to fathom who God is, it's an impossibility. Because if God is infinite and we are finite, regardless of what our capacity may be, something limited cannot fathom something which is unlimited, which is infinite. But it doesn't make a difference. But it's all contained in this verse. Superficially, we understand what the words mean, what they connote, and what they represent. But in terms of what lies in these words are God's words, and it's part of his Torah. What it contains is infinite levels of understanding. When God says, I am Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which is the attribute of mercy, which represents, it's a reference to he was, he is, and is in the future. Whatever that means. Of course, the obvious question is, how could God be in the future if the future hasn't yet happened? But God not being bound to time, he transcends time. He's in the future. We live within time. But how could he be in the future if we haven't arrived in the future yet? So what was, what is, and what will be still exists simultaneously. And Rambam writes about this. He says it's impossible for the human being to relate to this or process this, but nevertheless, that's what our tradition is, because that's God said, that's who he is. So we speak about God was. Was means God, it still is. Because if the was is the past, and if the past no longer exists, that means God is limited to a context of time, and God is not. The appellation of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, I just saw this recently. The three patriarchs were Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The letters of the names of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov are 13. If you add up the letters of the three names and 13 letters. Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, the four matriarchs. If you add up the letters of the four matriarchs, the 13 letters. Okay? The 13 letters of the patriarchs, the 13 letters of the four matriarchs. Firstly, what is the numerical value of 13? Which word is 13? You know which word? Echad. Echad numerically is 13. The Avos HaKadoshim, the holy patriarchs, the three of them, they represent God's unity in existence. The matriarchs, who are the mothers of the Jewish people, of the eternal people, you add up the letters of all the names, because each of them contributed to the spiritual DNA of the Jewish people. Being the matriarchs, it adds up to 13. What is that? Again, Echad. The patriarchs represent Echad, unity of God. The matriarchs represent unity of God. If you combine the matriarchs and patriarchs, what's the number? The number is 26. The numerical value of Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is 26. And this is referred to as, that is the name of God. This represents his being infinite. You know, a Jew, we pronounce Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the pronunciation is Adni. We don't pronounce it as it's spelled. As we pronounce the name of God, which connotes master, which is spelled Aleph, Daled, Nun, Yud, which means master. Adon is master. The pronunciation of Yud Kei Vav Kei is the same pronunciation. We pronounce it, but we don't pronounce its letters based on its vowels. And it's a Torah violation. You're not permitted to. The question is why? And it's alluded, it's stated in the pasuk, in the verse. The Torah spells the word lolam la'aleim. It has to be concealed. One does not say, pronounce it as it is. Why? Because factually he's the master. Factually he's infinite. But to be able to grasp and internalize the reality of infinite, it's an impossibility for a human being. It's impossible for any creation because every creation is finite. So this, our master is what? Our master is Yud Kei Vav Kei. He was, is in the future. What does that connote? Being infinite. But how do we merit that? How do we merit the revelation that God should share with us that he's master and that he's infinite? And we have it as fact. That's due to the patriarchs and the matriarchs. The patriarchs represent Echad. The matriarchs represent Echad. In conjunction, you have 26. That's Yud Kei Vav Kei. So the reason why we have relevance to the infinite is because the patriarchs and matriarchs together, they established a belief and a level of dedication, which was the only such level in the history of this existence. And because of that, they were committed to the objective of creation, which is Echad, which is Yud Kei Vav Kei, to be able to cleave to that infinite being. Once told over a story. There was a great, very holy Jew. His name was Elio Lapyan. Passed away in the early 60s. He had studied in Kelm, which was the famous Musi Shiva, in a small Lithuanian town. It's called Kelm, Kelm. And he was the one who mentored the students of that yeshiva, was known as the elder of Kelm, the elder statesman of Kelm. His name was Simcha Zissel Ziff, Z-I-F-F, Ziff. He was the most special, the closest student of Risho Salanter. By 3 primary students, he was the most special of the 3. And he established, it was called the Talmud Torah of Kelm. Reb Eli Lapyan was a graduate of that Torah Academy. And he was mentored for a year by this great rabbi. At the age of 27, I had mentioned this in the past, he had Gilui Elio. Elijah the prophet came to him. You understand? Elijah the prophet doesn't come to anybody. That only tells you how special he was. And there were times that he spent a tremendous amount of time with the Chofetz Chaim, who lived in this little town, Radun, in Poland. And he would visit the Chofetz Chaim. And one day, he goes to the Chofetz Chaim, and as he's coming into the Chofetz Chaim's house, there's a person leaving the Chofetz Chaim's house, dressed in a very unusual type of attire. Plus, he had a presence, which he never saw such a presence of holiness. And to the point where just seeing this person looking so unusual in the positive sense, he actually had some level of impact on Rebbe Eli Lapyan. Rebbe Eli wasn't a child, he was a person in his 30s or 40s. And he goes into the Chofetz Chaim and he says to the Chofetz Chaim, I just passed this person coming out of your house. Who was he? Or who is he? Chofetz Chaim says, when you met him coming out of the house, did you say Shalom Aleichem to him? Did you greet him, Shalom Aleichem? He says, of course. Did he respond, Aleichem Shalom? Did he acknowledge your greeting? Did he respond? He says, yes. So the Chofetz Chaim says to Rabbi Eliyahu, it is very good that that's what happened. That was the end of the conversation. Rabbi Eli Lapyan understood that this person was Eliyahu Novi, who had come out of the Chofetz Chaim's house. That's what he understood. Rabbi Eliyahu Novi, Elijah the prophet, was a frequent visitor of the Chofetz Chaim. You know what that means? So who does that say who the Chofetz Chaim was? This short man who wore a fisherman's cap, wore an ordinary double-breasted coat, who seemed to be just an old little man, was a giant who towered, that we can't even relate to who he was. He was worthy enough that Leo should visit him on a frequent basis. That's who he was. Why did the Chofetz Chaim merit to have this level of relationship? The Talmud tells us a story that there was a certain rabbi of the Talmud, that Eliyahu would study with every day of the week. And one day, Eliyahu Novi, Elijah, didn't show up. So he figured maybe something happened. He's preoccupied. The second day happens. A week passes, Eliyahu doesn't show up. So evidently he understood the reason why he didn't come. For some reason, he's lacking worthiness. Because if he would have been worthy, he'd come. Finally, Eliyahu Novi comes to him and he says to him, you haven't been in a while. What happened? He says, I'll tell you what happened. Within the 12-mile radius of where you live, there was a Jew who was mauled by a lion and killed. And if you would be at the level that you should be, your merit should have provided divine protection for your whole area. And that it did not, that speaks volumes that you have some kind of spiritual failing. And because of that, you're not worthy of this communication with me, that we should meet. That's why I stayed away for a week, to communicate this, that you're not where you should be. Put it this way, we're all not where we should be, because we should be much more advanced, of the best of us. But minimally, there's certain basic baseline that every one of us has to be. You have to acknowledge God for what he is. You may not understand who he is, which even the one who understands the most doesn't understand who he is. But one thing we all understand, he's the master. He's Adni. We all must understand he's infinite. He was, is, and is in the future. Also, he must understand that he is the Almighty. There's nothing that he can't bring about, and he does bring it about. Also, you have to understand he's one. Nothing exists outside of him. That's baseline Judaism. This is fundamental. Master, infinite, one, Almighty. Those are the basic elements of Jewish belief that every Jew has to believe in. So though Jews who say the first verse of the Shema may not appreciate the significance of those words, but if you have a general idea and you say those words, and you say it with intent, and you want to submit to that master who's echad. Everybody knows echad means one, but to appreciate what does one mean, it's more than just one. It means more than one and only. It means nothing exists outside of him. And everything exists only because everything emanates from him, because he wills everything. And that's what it's all about. That's where it begins, that's where it ends. And once you have that down pat, now we can start talking. If that is your belief, that who God is, that who he is, master, infinite, almighty, one. So who are we? We're not almighty. We're not master. We can't even control our own lives. We're not was, is in the future. And the unity of God, we have no relevance to that. But we all have that special, intimate, personal relationship with him because he's Elokeinu. And I recognize that. Now we can start talking what follows. If he is that, what is a subject? What is his level of obligation to a master? It's understood to follow his will, to submit to his will. And almighty means he doesn't need us. He's almighty. He's independent. So why does he want us to do his will and submit to his will and his mandate? The answer is it's for us, it's not for him. Because if he's almighty, it's like a person has all the money in the world and he calls somebody, he says, I want to do a deal with you, a business deal. The person thinks to himself, what I'm going to contribute working capital to him, we're talking about, it's almost absurd, but he wants to bring me into the deal. Why? Is it for him or is it for me? It's obvious. It's not for him. It's for the person. God is almighty. God needs nothing. There's nothing that's not within his ability. He's one. Nothing exists outside of him. He's master, meaning I'm subject because I'm acknowledging that. So why should I submit to God if I acknowledge all that? Because for me to be the beneficiary. Therefore, any opportunity he presents to me, although it may look like a burden, the Almighty is offering this to me. It's my best interest. Although you may not understand, it's still in your best interest. I'll give you an example. People say, something? I'm a satisfied person. I don't need the whole cake. A quarter of the cake is enough. So, I think I did enough good deeds in my life. I'm in a safe zone. But God says, as long as you're alive, you have to continue fulfilling my will. So if he's the master, he's all the almighty, and that's his dictate to you, what does that mean? As much as you're in a safe zone, you're not the ultimate beneficiary of what you did. And if he's willing your existence and gives you the ability to do what you should be doing, it tells you that what you believe and what you understand, you fully don't get it. Because if you truly would get it, there's not even a question. You'd be dedicated unceasingly. This opportunity, if you truly internalize the reality of who made this offer to you and who took us to be his people, Elokeinu, this almighty, we have a personalization with him. It's almost shameful. We should feel shamed. We're so inadequate. And yet, it's Elokeinu. The Almighty says, I want to have a relationship with you. But years ago, Lahavdil used to advertise PAL, Police Athletic League. You have signs. Big brother, the policeman in his blue, he put his arm on your shoulder. Big brother, he's taking responsibility for you. He wants you to turn out to be a good citizen. So you join the Police Athletic League. The police, they volunteer their services to teach civics to the young future citizenry. Okay? Does the policeman need it? He doesn't need it. Why? It's for these children who may go off or be errant, so given the opportunity to understand what's the value of society, to appreciate our society, to integrate them, that they should be contributing to our society. which ultimately is in the best interest of the citizens. You contribute, you're a beneficiary of your contribution. And if you have many people contributing, we're all beneficiaries of everybody's contribution. Lahavdil elef avdolos. If Hashem offers us opportunity, the Master, the Almighty, the King, who has a special, intimate relation with us, what is that opportunity? And he doesn't let up. As much as we do, it continues. The obligation is still in place. You must do another deal, another deal. Keep doing those deals. Why is God so preoccupied with us? Because God understands us at a level we don't understand ourselves. What does it mean to say you have a soul? You know, you have a thoroughbred horse. One ran in the Kentucky Derby, in the Preakness, and every whatever it is, the horse is worth $500,000, but it's a horse, unintelligible creature, no soul. If that's worth 150,000, you being a spiritual entity because you have a soul, what's your worth? Well, you know, I earn $4 an hour. And on top of that, I pay tax. I try to keep it a little under the, you know, under the table. So, you know, I should have a little bit left for myself. So when I want to buy that, you know, that extra piece of licorice and Tootsie Roll, I should have some pocket money. That's your worth? You mean your worth is you eat Tootsie Rolls and eat licorice, whether it's red chocolate or black? Is that what you live for? That's only a means to an end. The thoroughbred, its value is to run in a race. It's a horse race. It's a rat race. The human being was not created to be in a rat race. And this is the challenge of life. To understand what is the gross national product of a Jew. Gross national product of the Jew is not his earnings. That's not how we rate. Give you an example. A person that earns $1 million a year, and he meets a person who earns $1 billion a year. You know what you are in that person's eyes. If your value is based on what you earn, when this billionaire who earns $1 billion sees you, what are you? Excuse me, could you please shine my shoes? In a different context, you're king of the hilt. Here, you're a shoe shine boy. And you know something, and you have to use your own rag because I won't give you the rag to shine my shoes. The spit, it's your spit shine. You know, they used to have a spit shine. That's what it was. Esquire boot polish. That's what it used to be. It was the paste, not this liquid. We're going to stop here today.